never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, your host of the NRL Allstars podcast, back for another week of footy. TLT Supercoach round 6. Means we're about 20% of the way through the season, so it is a lot more along than what you'd think. It certainly feels like it's still week 1 or 2 to me, but we have this week Mikey back on board. It's been a couple of weeks. Mikey, welcome back, mate. I hope you've been well.
I've been pretty well. The Supercoach season's flying through, and I feel like every round there's so many moves to make, and I'm feeling like it's getting harder and harder to catch up. But the weeks are getting brutal. The round have just gone brutal, which will cover lots of injuries, lots of changes, and I feel like there's just so many guys up for offer every week for trading, and getting the right 2 guys is getting hard. Brought in Sasangi last week. Even with all the risk, I just got to my point where I do a normal season go, I don't care about the risk. Happy with that one, and I went for a 1% pod play last week. Attained to a picky. Didn't work out, but if he manages to keep holding that spot, the Warriors' draw incoming is good. So the fact he didn't go gangbusters, no one's going to really worry about him. So whether or not that one's going to work out in the next fortnight for me, but looking at doing a little bit different trades this week too. So I'm at about 27,000 rank. I'm kind of seem to be holding and not really dropping that spot. So it's not bad. I'm good at coming back. It's enough for me to start, rolling some steam now. But I think I want to see a big round. I'm just kind of staying in the middle. I need to see a big round in the next couple of weeks to kind of get my season back on track, I think.
Yeah, I'm not normally too worried about my ranks, early on. But I've got to say, this has been my week of concern. I've had the worst 2 weeks possible, and it's dropped me massively. I dropped like 15,000 spots this week or something ridiculous. So I'm pretty close to the rank that you are. It's just everything that could go wrong did for me. I thought Reece Walsh last week was a must-have. Brought him in and captained him. Now, a lot of people did that, so that's fine. But then I also copped some other injuries as well. Played guys like Pezzett because I thought, Pezzett would be okay. And I guess it's a bit of a tough point in the season too, Mikey, because I think that a lot of us were lulled into a false sense of security at the start of this season because all of the cheapies and mids were going well. And you normally think that, it's going to fluctuate. They're not going to keep doing it. And they sort of did for a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden you see the floor drop through a lot of them. And all of a sudden all these centre wings that were cheapies just aren't scoring that well. And it's really separating teams a lot from those that are able to get to the higher ceiling players and certainly the guns that are broken out this year that we didn't know about. And that's probably what I wanted to focus our little strategy chat to start with as well, having a look at what you do at this point of the season when you've got big decisions to make and you need to chase. And that's certainly my team. I think it's your team as well from what you said. And one of the big things is, I guess you've got to, for me, the big turning point right now at round 6 is that you need to be able to decide who the guys that are busting out are going to continue to bust out, and that's just who they are, and you need to pony up and pay for them. And the guys that maybe have done well but are going to fall off, because inadvertently with all these guys that haven't done it before, some of them are going to drop off. But I think that the hardest thing for me this Supercoach season is figuring it out. At the moment, the number 1 ranked player is Thomas Jenkins. He's scoring 109 points per game. He's only in 12% of teams. He's almost $900,000. Now, 3 weeks ago, we could say he's not going to keep it up, but it's round 6 now, mate. Like, what do you do? And then you've got all these other guys like Alex Twal, who I've said to people the last few weeks, no, I just can't get around it. I can't do it. I'd pick someone else. But at this point, you have to maybe say, look, maybe it is Alex Twal this year. Maybe the style that they're going to play, it's going to be that guy where he's going to be that guy that busts out and just has a career year. But we've already seen some guys drop off, right? Like you mentioned Sasangi, and he's been going great. He's another one. But then you've also got guys like the Warriors contingent, for instance. Boyd scored 35 on the weekend. We thought he could have that drop off. He did. Ford, the last 2 weeks, has scored 60 on the nose, even though he's gotten good minutes. And again, far cry from when everyone was buying him 2 weeks ago. Mikey, how do you handle this? Because for me, I think it's the biggest lottery and it's so hard to pick. KPP's another one at the Tigers, went ballistic on the weekend, 2% owned, almost 700K though.
Yeah, it's getting hard to judge. And kind of last week, you're looking at it, and Finifuyaki was also like a big trade in and someone I really wanted to get. And I looked at it and I just said, you know what? He's got to buy in a really tough draw. I can't have all of them, so I've got to resonate with the player that I think's going to go well for me, and at least make the own call for myself. Like, look, you can't take heaps of credit on Sasani. Like, he was he was the most traded in last round, but still, he still sits in an okay ownership. So I kind of went him because I was like, you know what? Even with all the risks there, he's playing that good, and he hadn't scored a try. I thought that try was incoming, and I was like, even if it's just a short-term play. And now all of a sudden he's got back-to-back 90s, very low break-even. So that's going to be handy play. And the fact that he's centre wing second row, in my team, I'm kind of looking at it, and you mentioned it before, Barnesy. I want to make sure I have 3 decent centre wings I can play to not rely on these cheapies. I think that is, right now, the issue in my side, and I need to avert to it. It's why I brought in Sasangi and Tuapiki. Like, I've had Stephen Crichton go down for me this week, so it gives me the option just not to buy a second wing. I knew it. That next week, try and, push Sasangi with how well he's going into centre wing. That can plug that issue, and there's a lot of second rollers, on purchase, and you mentioned guys like Alex Twal, and to be honest with you, he's the second most traded in right now, but I'm kind of looking at it and going, yeah, he's killing it. But there's other players I like that are going to stay hidden, and that's how you catch up with some pods. But there's some pods with huge pedigree coming out of the grounds, right? Like, look, we're obviously talking pre-TLT. TLT is going to get named in 15 minutes while we're talking. And apart from that too, things can change. Like, obviously, the most traded, it's going to fluctuate because we've had such a late lockout. But I'm looking at guys like Olukuatu, and I really want Olukuatu. Break even of 30, 6% owned, and currently, as I'm talking to you, it's almost 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. He's only been brought in by 500 compared to Alex Twal at 4,450. So I'm looking at plays like that, guy like Olukuatu, who, have a look ahead. If Manly keep, it's like Foran gave Olukuatu the keys to the city, and I'm looking at things like that, and if it can replicate, he's playing the Dragons. He's got a game with the Broncos in a few weeks. Like, I'm looking at all his edge matchups. He's got Cowboys and stuff like that. I'm going, you know what I mean? I'd rather take a hit at a guy with a run like that. But you're going to have to strike this week. And I think this is the week to strike, Barnes. And the reason I say that, there's going to be a lot of people with how Hynes and Cleary are going. If you don't have double gun halfbacks, you're going to have to work on getting that other halfback in. If you don't have Tom Trbojevic this week with Reece Walsh, everyone's going to go to that. So my plan is I don't have to worry about that. I've got Tom. I've got double halfback. So it allows me this week to take a pot in the fullback and go in a different direction and grab a guy like Casey McLean, Cooler, or Olukuatu. Because let's face it, Barnesy, the Panthers are killing it. The draw, they've gone through their toughest draw. Look at their for and against. They're absolutely killing it. Their draw right now, even the Bulldogs draw, I'm not scared about. They could put some serious points on some sides. So I think the priority's got to be grabbing 1 or 2 of them. Like, I'll be grabbing 1 Panther for this week, 100%.
Yeah, one of the unfortunate things as well, like when you look at the Panthers as an example too, Thomas Jenkins being 872,000, is if you wait too long on these guys, there's a point where a lot of the value is greatly diminished, and that's what I think coaches really need to be aware of. Like, at 872,000, I don't see any value in Tom Jenkins. Now, that's not to say I don't think he'll do well. I think he'll keep doing well. He just can't possibly average 109 points per game. And doing well, he could very well average 80 points per game over the next 4 or 5 weeks, which is fantastic. But it's fantastic for the guys that bought him at 550,000, not the guys who are going to pay almost 900,000. And that's a big difference. There's got to be a drop-off point where you go, I can't pay that because it is too expensive. And everybody has that price. It's just a matter of whether they get to it or not. I thought that Ford got to it a couple of weeks ago. Guys like Sasangi are really interesting because he hasn't gotten to that yet. He's about 600K. There's still a lot of value there. And I think that's where you've really got to balance things. It's hard though, because you've also got to try and, like what you did, I like what you did with Olukuatu, because if you're not getting on some of these guys because you don't think they'll keep it up, or you think it's a run rather than a season of form, you need to decide on who the next crop of guys are that are going to bust out. And you get on them early enough. And Olukuatu is a great call with that at 6% ownership. He's coming off a ton. He's got a good matchup this week, so I really like that call. And there's going to be others. We saw last year this happen, Mikey, and it's probably good for people to remember. that there was guys that did have definite career seasons, right? And they busted out for the entire season. But more likely than not, the majority of players that went on big runs or were the top 5 or top 10 ranked guys near the start of the season, those pod guys did drop off at some point off their run and they were average again. And you got to decide on who that's going to happen to. Now, the guys that busted out, like Ero last year had a career year, scored 9 times in a row. Herbie was about 9 games in a row as well. You know, those type of runs, if you miss them, it completely kills you. It's so demotivating and it hurts your team. But picking the right ones, yeah, it's a lottery. All we can do, Mikey, I think, is give people a lot of data and a lot of numbers and a lot of options, and then everybody's got to go back to what we would call your gut.
Yeah, 100%. And on Jenkins, I 100% agree with you. He's on a Jack Reed type run, and as well as how good he's going, all the balls going that way. Like, look, there's not to say that you jump on him for the next month he scores really well, but I look at that and then I have a look at Casey McLean this week with a break even of 8 and he's 200k cheaper and he's next to him. He's, you know, if he's scoring well, a lot of the tries that he's getting, look, some Jenkins obviously is getting from kicks, but he's getting some that Casey McLean creates for him. The first try for him on the weekend was created by Casey McLean. Now, I see Casey McLean, who's come out saying he wants a Blues jersey. I think he's going to continue this form coming into a very good set of matchups, especially like he's going up against Twal this week. I'd prefer to spend 200 less and target him. So he's another one on my radar this week. Between him or Olakau'atu, and then I'll grab a fullback for Walsh is my play. But I'm kind of thinking if I take a Panther for the other trade, then I also would like to grab another like Seagull. I know the Eagles, they just had one really good week under Forum, but if they continue and take the shape in attack, then I think there will be some Supercoach opportunity there because they've still got a really nice run too over the next month.
Well, let's move over to Market Watch and have a look at the players that are coming in and out of sides and have a bit of a chat about those in a bit more detail. Before we do, I just want to mention the great sponsor of the NRL Allstars podcast in One World Courier. You can go to oneworldcourier.com.au today and have a look at them, but they are a freight and shipping organisation. They are a platform online where you put in exactly what you want to send, where you want to send it to, and they will tell you all the carriers that you can use to send what you're sending, how much it'll cost you. Just pick what one you want. One More Courier take care of the rest for you. So whether you own your own business or you work for a business that has any any shipping or freight needs, they are the people to talk to and to use. When you sign up to an account, make sure that you put NRL All-Stars podcast as far as where you heard about them from, and they'll set your account up with a great discount to start with there. But onemorecourier.com.au, go sign up for a free account today and check them out for your freight and shipping. Market Watch for trade out. There's a lot of guys that are just injured, which is disappointing, like Reece Walsh, Stephen Crichton head that list. And then there's some guys that people are jumping off because they've had enough. Now, the controversial ones I want to focus on. Payne Haas, he didn't play many minutes on the weekend. He's coming off his lowest score of the season. And look, 49 points, it's not the worst score in the world, but for Payne Haas, it's a pretty bad one. He's now got a 129 break even. Now, Mikey, I decided to sell him 2 weeks ago because to me, I sort of thought, look, if you want to sell him when he's going to miss a game and he's in doubt for the next one, or you think his minutes are going to be less, which I did. You know, but that storm's kind of weathered now. So to me, it's a little bit harder to sell him now. I'm not going to say that you can't, but you've just taken a hit for 2 weeks now. There's every chance that his minutes go back to what they need to be and what they normally are because they are down on troops and the Broncos have got that grudge match against the Cowboys this week. I'm in two minds about it because, you know, if anyone came to me with this trade, I'd ask the question, why didn't you do it 2 weeks ago? You know, because there was so much more value in doing it then. To me, you kind of decide to hold a guy like Payne Haas who's actually playing. It becomes hard to sell him when he's going to go back to his normal minutes at some point now.
Yeah, I agree with you in that sense, but I don't mind the trade-off still because, yeah, I agree with you. Why didn't you do it 2 weeks ago? The reason I sold him was I was worried about this lingering issue when his minutes regress and then all of a sudden his value is going to plummet. If you aren't super hit by injuries this week, if you are, congratulations, then you could do, say, a Payne Haas to Alex Twal, bank 200k, and you could utilize that. If you're getting a guy that really, you know, is hitting similar scores to what you'd expect Payne Haas to do for 200k cheaper and then use that money to upgrade, then I don't hate it. But if you've got guys like Reece Walsh, Stephen Crichton, it'd be hard to sell a guy like Haas. It's just there are a big plethora of options, especially in that second row to front row slot, that I think people are going to start taking gambles on it. Like, there are just so many people to purchase this week. So it's good, but because it's going to differentiate teams, I think, especially for this round, especially because there's just so many guys that are hitting their straps hard. So, yeah, look, I don't hate it. It's just, obviously, if he gets another 50-ish this week, that break-even's going to keep soaring and he's going to drop money fast. Like, he's not going to go now 500Ks, but I guess if it goes from 800 to in the 600s, you are losing a bit of value there when you could be doing other stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm not saying either way. I'm totally on the fence with Payne Haas. What I will say with Payne is what I meant to say in our strategy segment, and that is something that I'm doing now. I'm actively going super aggressive on my trade outs. I don't care. There is no name value in my trade outs. There is no average value in my trade outs. If I think that I can make a move trading them out, I'm doing it. So last week I traded Suafa'alongo, and I explained my reasons why somebody could do that on the podcast, even though I didn't say I was going to do it. And the reasons were because he was 70% owned, and to me he's had his purple patch, and I think that there's other fullback options that could beat him over that period, which was Reece Walsh. Now, 65 points last week. He's got some tough matchups coming up as well. That's a move that I'm comfortable with. The other move that you could do is a Payne Haas because he's 50% owned still. You know, it's an aggressive move. It could work out. If you need to chase, these are the type of things you need to do. Herbie Farnworth is off this week. He's well over 800,000 in value, and he's now got a really hard draw for the next month. So these are the type of calculated high risk, high reward moves that you can make with the high ownership guys to try and aggressively chase. And I do think that you need to boost and aggressively chase early in the season, which is now. So I am doing these moves myself. You just have to be aware of the high risk, right? Herbie could come back next week, for example, and bust out 100 pretty easily. So it's got to be calculated, but I guess Payne Haas applies with that sort of logic as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely a tempting one trading a guy like Herbie, but then you all of a sudden, like example, to make my trade this week, I've got to try and do like a Reed Marnie to Brennan Smith. All of a sudden, if you go for a chasing move and you sell a guy like Herbie, you could go to Casey McLean, make your money that way, and then grab another gun as well. So, yeah, it just depends on kind of what stage you're in to what kind of move you want to make. And I don't hate the Falongo one. I know Sav's on that move as well. I didn't do it yet, but personally, if Tom, I'm going to use him to get to Tedesco, but I just think the Storm are going to respond. And if the Storm are going to respond to these 3 losses in a row, he's got to be in something. So, but 100% you're right. These are the moves you got to make. You can't just go, no, I can't trade a gun, because there is a world where you can.
Yeah, and you can't go along with too much of the crowd when it's at higher ownership as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, Herbie, just for a Dolphins example, buy this week, Penrith, Warriors in New Zealand, Melbourne. That is a horrid 4 weeks. It's
why I didn't get Finifuriaki, even though he's killing it. It's what put me off him.
Yeah, so these are the type of things that I think you can look at with some of these, don't trade a gun type players.
They do play the first buy, though. That is the other thing about it. And the thing, especially while we're talking about Herbie, the thing about Herbie that scares me is he's just scoring so well without playing that great. Like, he's been good. He hasn't been great, and that's what I mean. So if he has a great game, he's going to put 150 on. He has a capability of scoring 200 on his day. And that is the scary part about not having him. Like, yeah, that's a rough draw, but the Melbourne's edges are leaky. The Warriors are in a bit of a slump at the moment. Penrith, that Penrith matchup's horrible, but in the same time, he'll be up against Paul Adamotti. So, yeah. But depending on what you can do this week with it, I could get around seeing the reasons why.
Yeah, it's just it's very hard at the moment because you've got to chase, and there's so many similar teams because we all had so many cheapies to go for. So to differentiate yourself and chase hard, I'm finding, looking around at the movement, that the ranks aren't changing as much the first month of the season as what they have maybe other seasons. So
yeah, so
it's
changing strategy might be the play.
Yeah, I think it might be for some teams. If you're going well, then you don't really need to be doing these moves. But I am not, and some of the other players that are getting traded out, David Fifita is another one. Now, David Fifita is owned by a lot of teams, and some people will say, well, Barnesy, isn't it the same as trading out, a Herbie Farnworth or something, It's still high ownership. He's kind of peaked in price as far as his break-even goes, but I don't think it's the same. And the reason why I don't think it's the same is because I haven't gotten anything out of David Fifita. Like Suafa'alongo, I got a red-hot start to the season for a month where he's averaging 100 points a game. So, I've gotten that hot streak. David Fafita has not gotten a hot streak yet. He has gotten no attacking stats in the last 3 weeks and just a try assist in round one. So, he's averaging 62. He went off for a 14-minute break on the weekend, so he didn't play his 80 minutes. But to me, looking at it against the Raiders this week, who are not playing very well, and then against the Dragons at home at a core the following week, that's a decent 2 weeks for David Fafita to have a look for a try. And there's not a huge amount of value too, which is the other thing, You sell Herbie, you sell Suafai Longo, you're getting over $800,000 of value to play with in your team. You get anyone. You're selling David Fafita, you still got to sell someone else to get anyone good. I don't see the value in doing a David Fafita trade out right now.
Yeah, 100%. It doesn't make sense. Like I get in the second row, as I mentioned earlier, there are so many purchases and you only have 6 spots, 7 if you use your flex. But I think you should be using your flex for a fullback or a half, because have a look at the score so far. They're still killing it. Right now, at your total points, Hynes is sitting 3, Cleary is sitting 4. Technically, Tanner Boyd's 5, so there's 3 halves. Bolon goes 2. So it's still, even with these stats change, it's still similar to last year. So, yeah, I wouldn't be selling a guy like David Fafita, like at 530K. Like, he's still value. Like you said, like if you're going to make a play and jump off someone highly owned, you want to be able to, like Herbie, he's 800 or 790K. So there's a big difference there. I don't understand that trade out.
Yeah, I think if it was round one right now, everybody would start with David Fafita at that current price. So, and the current draw.
Definitely.
So I just don't see the need or wanting to get rid of him. Now, guys like Kinney, Boyd has probably peaked in price. These guys make sense. And then obviously some of the cheapies who haven't gone that well. I'm just going to finish off on the trade out today, mate, just by reminding everyone something that I touched on during last week as well. Just don't be scared to trade out the cheapies if you need to do it to get to a gun move. That makes sense. But I wouldn't trade out centre wing cheapies, especially just because you think that they're peaked at around a 40 BE or something. All it takes for a Makasini or a Fayamani to start skyrocketing is an attacking game where they get a try or two. And then all of a sudden they start making their real money. So whilst it's hard to play these guys now, Mikey, I wouldn't be necessarily pushing to sell them unless you really have to, particularly the centre wings, because I think you want to keep those try scorers and point scorers in the backs as long as you can for them to get to that purple patch run. And really, I think we've been quite unlucky. I don't think any of them have really had it, have they? Like guys like Makasini, guys like Leo, guys like Fayamani. These guys haven't really had that red hot run where they've been able to gain a lot for 2-3 weeks in a row.
No, they haven't. I agree with you in that sense. Like, guys like Fayamani, I'm worried that could get dropped if the Titans keep going poor. Just touching on Moses Leo, I thought, a lot of us thought he was going to get dropped. He's come back into the lineups and just have a look at the teams as we go. He's been named on the left wing. So, Mernaya Watara, I'm pronouncing that really bad. He scored well 2 weeks in a row. He actually hasn't made their back line. So, he's in the most traded in, which we're going to get to currently. So, that's going to definitely... That's going to change, but a guy like Moses Leo now, if you've held, you just hold on. I personally think, being on the wing might mean more tries, so that could be better for him. But like you said, I'm prioritising trying to get and not have to play these cheapies, but I'm happy to have 3 of them sit there. So, look, same thing. Even though Leo's now on the wing, I can still get around to sell. I haven't got to the Tigers team yet, but if Tavana's held his wing spot, you go down to him, that's 120K to play with. That makes a hell of a lot of sense. Asetu 2, I'd only be kind of getting rid of him unless there's a guy with good job security. Because with how poor the Dragons are going, if he gets a recall, his break-even's not bad at all. So one of these centre wings, or a couple of them, they're probably going to end up at 400, 500 if you're patient and they keep the spot in the sides. It happens every year. It's,
100%.
SuperCoach 101. It's going to happen.
Trade-ins. Tom Trbojevic, number 1 most trade-in player. Playing the Dragons.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
It does. I'm looking at it myself. He is in 14% of teams. He'll be in 20% plus teams after the round starts. But I'm going to be controversial here. He's big call of the week. Manly aren't going to play that well every week for the rest of the season. They're going to drop off, I think, a little bit. And likewise, the Dragons are under heaps of pressure. And I'm not going to say the Dragons are 100% going to bounce back, Mikey, because they're not good enough to 100% back them. I'm just going to say that it is a 50-50 to me that they could turn up this week and bounce back, and it could be a bit of a shitty game with the Sea Eagles versus the Dragons. Maybe not, the 40-10 game that we're hoping for from Manly. I could see the Dragons putting up some fight and stuff for their coach and even for their own spots in the side. We've already heard during the week, we've got 7 Dragons who are off contract, who are negotiating, all put on hold, including Damien Cook. So that motivates footballers when they need to get going again to get contract negotiations going. You tend to see them turn up just a little bit.
Yeah, they're going to have to bounce back, but I still think, Manly will want to, they want to back up what they did last week. And even under Seabold, Tom has been great for them. Tom and Cooler have been excellent beforehand. Like, they've been scoring well in Supercoach. Tom's on an absolute try-scoring tear. And, I VC'd Tom this week, and I'd have been very, a lot of us, I was pissed off because if he didn't have that little HIA and, was rested, he was looking for a 150 score for sure. He was looking like a big scoreline could be on. And you're right, they're not going to score like that every week, but the Dragons aren't going to get better overnight. I think if they were to have an upset win, they're still going to leak a lot of points. So I'd get around the Tom trade in. I'm kind of happy about it too, because everyone's kind of flocking at Tom because he's going so well. I already have him, so with Reece Walsh, I can go to another fullback, which is great because I want to, if not, if everyone already had these guys, then everyone's going to keep going to the same player. So I'm trying to think about who's other players that are going to score well too. I think that's all part of catching up or getting ahead of the pack.
Yep. No, I agree with that. And it is a good 3 weeks for Manly. So I'm not saying that not to get those Manly players.
Yeah.
I just think that,
hard to ignore.
Last week people are thinking, last week this is going to be all of a sudden Manly's one of the top attacking teams in the comp. To me, that emotion leaves pretty quickly of the new coach emotion and everything. They are away 2 weeks too, Wynn Stadium and Townsville the next 2 weeks. But I really like the next 3 weeks of matchups for Tom. So, I may very well get him myself because Dragons, Cowboys and Eels are good. It's a good 3 weeks, and that Eels game is at 4 Pines. So it's a good 3 weeks. It needs to be said, Tom has scored 5 tries in his 4 games so far. His 3-round average of 79 includes 4 tries in those 3 games. It isn't quite what you'd hope for if he'd scored that many points, but he still looks like he's in everything, and you don't want to miss out on that. I like your call on Cooler as well. He's one of those guys where you kind of need to decide, look, is this a real deal bust out year? Is this the Euro from 2025 season? Or is he just on a run of form? He's averaging 82 points at the moment. He's gone 108, 23, 94 and 104. So 3 out of 4 games are 90 plus, and one of them's an absolute dud of 23 points. The ones that are 90 plus, he's scored a try and gotten multiple line breaks. So again, that same run as what Tom's got, but you're paying 660k. Ola Kawatu is about the same price as well. So there's certainly a few Manly guys to target.
Yeah, and you have to target him this week. Break even of 17. Yeah, you got to take him this week. They got a great matchup. Cooler goes against a nice matchup this week. He'll be against Valentine Holmes. But look, all the Dragons perform, pretty poor last round. But Cooler's just a guy that even when they're breaking through the line, he's busting through the line so easy. He's just so strong, and he's fast, and he's supporting too. So I don't mind him as well, like Tom. They're just, when there's a line break, if they're not the ones creating it, they're always the ones in and around it. So they're just scoring tries based off that fact. So I like that. The Eagles were doing really poor before that, but to be honest right now, I'm more interested in with the Manly. And although it doesn't mean even if the team's losing most weeks, as long as they're scoring points, and still can have a lot of Supercoach relevant guys. So I rate that move. And just a quick one back on that Sedu 2 point. He's actually been recalled. He's named on the wing this week. So
I thought that would happen. Yep.
I thought it would happen too, because realistically, if you compare the performances of the past wing, he's definitely been the better of the 3. I thought it was pretty rough to drop him. So yeah, it just shows from Holden. A good hold there. So one less problem if, you're worried about having too many guys not playing this, on your centre wing bench. So it's a few
Alex
changes.
Twal, very popular, as we said. We already mentioned him. But it's an interesting narrative going along right now, because there is one that you could make the argument that number 13 at the Tigers is just a manufactured role by Benji. And it isn't really that Terrell May was as good as what his stats said. It wasn't really that, Alex Twal is. It's just that number 13 jersey with how Benji wants that 13 to play is going to kill it. And if that's the case, Alex Twal is just going to continue on and be the Terrell May of 2026, because one, that 13 jersey gets the minutes. He's killing it in the minutes. He's playing 68 minutes a game. It gets the workload and it gets the license to offload. Twal eclipsed his last season's offloads in the first 3 weeks of this season, I think it was, or 2 weeks of the season. It's just crazy. So he's now gone, and those last 2 weeks, he's gone 70 and 71 in raw base. Not offloads and tackle breaks in there, raw base. It is just insane. But that's the argument, isn't it, mate? That's the role of that number 13 jersey at the Tigers, and it's just going to continue on. If it does, he's one of those guys that's not priced out of the market. At 608,000, he's immense value at that point.
Yeah, definitely consider him at the fact, I'm looking at Olakuatu, and he's obviously 70k or 60k cheaper, but I kind of want to zig while I zag, you know what I mean? Like that good old saying, I don't know. I think he's a solid buy, especially if you need him in the front row, but I'm going for a second row target this week. And if I don't go Olakuatu, I could grab a centre wing like Cooler or Casey McLean. So I think I prefer to do a move like that because I don't know, does he keep these minutes up? He keeps those scores, but I'm also kind of trying to attack these players that are going to score high attacking stats and give me 100 pluses. And that's why I'm falling with Olakuatu because I think with this draw coming up, let's say, on the odd chance that they do keep up this purple patch of form under four. It was just the way that he was utilised. It was like he changed. I know foreign's not going to change too much overnight, but that was definitely in the game plan. And if that continues with the matchups that he's got, I'd prefer to go an upside second rower than 12. But look, the price in that, you can't knock anyone from doing it. But yeah, I think I'd prefer to do something else. But he's absolutely killing it. Is there a point where maybe he loses a few minutes and Terrell May starts eating up some more? Potentially. But the Tigers are playing awesome.
Well, that's the thing. They're winning now, right? And they're going well. So I don't see them changing too much, and that's the good thing for 12. It's interesting because it's also a player that I've told people for a couple of weeks up until this past week, no, I don't like the trade. And I feel bad for that now because it was obviously the right trade to make. But you mentioned upside. One of the problems with 12 is always going to be that he never ever scores tries. It's laughed about when Alex Twal gets a try. And it's not something where he can go 120-point game. But the problem is that with those offloads in there now, his base power is so high, we can see that he can easily go 80s and 90s pretty consistently now if he keeps it up. 86 and 97 the last 2 weeks. Those are really big scores. So, yeah, it's absolutely an option. These next two guys, Nico Hynes and Cleary, they're both coming off tons. Cleary with the best score of the round at 144. Another mistake I made, not putting the C on him and VCing Reece Walsh, but we won't get into that. Nico Hynes versus the Roosters in Perth this week. 808,000, he's gone up. He's obviously had a pretty good start to the season, but that 144 just blew everyone out of the water. I was surprised that he was sub 20% ownership, Mikey. He gave that 144 to not that many owners in Supercoach. Back-to-back tons. 3 out of his first 5 games are tons. Plays the Roosters in Perth this week and then has a bye. Not the ideal time to purchase him, but after that bye, Cowboys, the Tigers, Souths and Bulldogs, and then another bye. So, he comes out of the bye with a really good matchup against those Cows, but it's a bit of a fluctuating draw, isn't it? Is it really the best time to invest in Nico?
It might not be, but at the same, if I had Tanner Boyd, I'd be still making that trade because his break-even's quite low. So, he's scoring really well in Supercoach, and he's not even, I feel like it's still going a lot of Braden Trindle's way. I think he's just making the most of the moments that he's getting, and it's working in Supercoach. So I still think, there's another game that he could have a breakout game and he could score another big one. If he does it against the Roosters this week, then his price is going to start, it already is getting up there. It's going to continue to get up there. So I wouldn't be as scared of the buy. That's why I started with Hynes, but I looked to get Cleary straight away when I saw how Panthers were playing because I was like, don't worry about it. Just do everything you can to get these two halfbacks. I don't really care about the buys or nothing. Get those two guys. They're not going to let me down with how they're scoring. Right now, they're two of the most consistent scorers. So, I see why people would be going to doing it. But by doing that, you will be sacrificing a lot of these other good buys out at the moment. So that's why you might go, maybe, you know what? I'll wait till after the other buys, get these other guys, and then bulk up the cash to get him. But you're going to be, you're going to have to find a pretty large break, depending who your other halfback is. If you're in the spot where you've got a cheapy halfback, it's a big upgrade. It's what I had to do. It's what most will have to do. But I think at this point, I would be getting that cheapy halfback up to another gun half, because the ones that aren't, you're going to fall behind. Like, I feel like to catch up, I need those 2 gun halves.
Yeah, I think it's a good strategy. I would position Cleary as the better buy out of the 2, though. So if you don't have either,
you have to have
Nathan Cleary. Yeah,
Yeah,
so Cleary's
especially with the drawing coming, and they don't have a buy till the first buy round.
12, yeah. So that's the thing. Cleary's draw is much better than Hynes. Cleary's got, it's 3 games away in a row, but they've got the Bulldogs, the Dolphins, the Knights, Manly at home, Raiders away, and then they go back home against the Dragons. So
and it's his 200th game this week, Barnesy, so look out if you don't have Cleary.
Big one, 200th game. And similar to Nico, he's got 3 out of 5 with tons so far this year. And I will say, like, I don't think that Cleary hasn't had many games where he's got like bulk attacking stats either, but he's having the goal kicking is just absolutely pushing his value, skyrocketing his value, because they're scoring so many points in Penrith and he's a goal kicker. So that's added so much to him to start this season as well. I reckon he's a buy. He's the guy. You've got to get him in this week.
He's only getting 1 or 2 tries. If you don't have Cleary, you got to grab him. It's his 200th this round. He's going to go massive. Everyone that owns him is going to have something on him, whether it's a straight C or a VC. Just with that run incoming, he's leading the Dalian leaderboards. They're just playing so good that that's why as soon as I saw their first 2 performances, I was like, just get him. Like, even though when I didn't have Latrell, I was just like, I need to get him, because in this patch of form, they're scary not to own. So, and it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up with the run incoming. Like, if Cleary's can like put 4 or 5, like he's got a 200-point game in him, and that's going to sink out if you don't own him, because with this drawing coming, he's going to have something on him by a lot of super coaches that own him. So that's the other side to a guy like him. He can hurt you twice in the one round if you don't own him.
Well, other Panthers teammates for him too are very popular in the top 10. Casey McLean, 104 and 112 the last 2 weeks, now averaging 76 for the season. He's got that same draw, obviously. He's 691,000. Edwards is the other guy where people are zagging away from Turbo potentially. Edwards is coming off a 108. He's scored a very solid 78 for the season. I'm not as much into Edwards. I certainly think that I think I'd rather Turbo, and I certainly think that the Roosters draw's gone under the radar that's coming up now. After this Sharkies game, it's a pretty decent run of games, and Tedesco is around the same price as what Edwards is, so I'd prefer him too, and he's much more of a pod option that I don't think people are looking at. But certainly McLean's an interesting one, because we haven't really had the gun centre wings that we were hoping for really bust out, and McLean is asserting himself as one of those guys now, so maybe it's time to believe in him and get him in.
Yeah, look, I told you how keen I am on Casey McLean, because like I was at that game live, and when he was going, so I was like, he's an option. Like, he does have those lower end games. Like, he was on 80 something at half time. He only managed to get like 16, 17 points. So I'm aware of that. But coming into this draw, I think the attack's going to be on the, it's going to be there. So you target him for this matchup. He's going to have those big games. He's going to score tries. He was one of Panthers' leading try scorers last year. Look, if I do something crazy and sell Herbie Farnsworth instead of try and make money elsewhere, I will grab Casey McLean. And I'm in the opposite side of camp for Dylan Edwards. Dylan Edwards is a player I was referring to earlier. I will be buying Dylan Edwards this week. I do prefer him to Tedesco this round.
Big.
I prefer him to Tedesco this round. It doesn't mean by doing that, I'm saying that I do want Tedesco. My plan was to go full on, go to Tedesco next week. He's got the high break even. I'm willing to wait a week. If I'm wrong and Tedesco
you can do that easy.
There, that's why I want to wait a week, and I think the time to attack now, the more so I was thinking, if I went Olakwatu this week, I want a Panther. Walsh has gone down injured. I know everyone goes, Edwards without the goal king. The Panthers are playing so well, and if you have a look at the way they're shaping, Edwards is getting more tries this points than what Cleary is. He's always there. The way their attack shape, like, I watch every second and minute of Panthers games. The attack's running for him as well, and he's accumulating a lot of points in that sense, where for 730,000, I'm happy to buy him. I've never been a Dylan Edwards owner, which would probably surprise you, Barnesy. But I'm keen on him. With the matchup, I said I want to have a lot of him in there. There'll be games where, he might not score as big as some of the other fullbacks, but they're going to be games where he does. So I just want more Panthers factor, and if I want more Panthers factor, it makes sense to grab another guy in the spine. So I think he's a great trading for this week. And mind you, if I didn't have Tom, I agree with you. I'd go Tom over Edwards. But I own. So that is why I think it's a good play for me. And even though he's only been brought in by 2,000, he'll still be a pod. That'll go up. That'll 100% go up. But because of Tom is such a good option this week, he's probably still going to sit at around 10% because he's only 1 or 2% owned right now. So that's also why I like the play, because if they just go on a run where they can start banking 40 points, Edwards is gonna be in those points, 100%. So
yeah, and the fullback spots are going to be the differentiator as well, because there's so many good ones.
Why you got to have
that'll
3.
differentiate teams. It'll also the VC and C options are there. I have preferred Drinkwater the last couple of weeks to Edwards, and I'm going to stick by that too. I think
he's also good on 100%. Yeah.
90 plus the last 3 weeks. I'm happy I held him.
How long can the Cowboys keep this up is my big question, and it is why I would rely on the Panthers factor and how well they're going.
Keep up being shit.
Chips.
They're not any good. Like they're
winning games and scoring. Yeah, they're winning games and scoring points. So how long's that going to keep up? That is what I'm suggesting. They've had a good draw. That draw is going to get harder. So. Look, still the point, but I'd prefer Edwards over Drinky purely based on how they're going, how he's been scoring, and what's to come. So I'm doing that on that fact that I believe the Panthers are going to score, they're going to score better. I know they've already been scoring crazy, but I think they're coming into a better draw. So I'm banking on the fact that they're going to continue to get better, which is a big statement.
I don't disagree entirely. I don't think they'll get much better though, but I'll just throw out the stats for Drinky for people to consider.
Score more points.
3-round average of 92. He's now playing the Broncos, who are decimated this week. He's then at home 2 weeks in a row. Home versus Manly, home versus Sharks, away versus Dogs, and then back at home against the Eels. 3 out of the next 5 are at home, and one of those other ones that aren't at home is still at Suncorp, just not that far away from Townsville. So it's a decent chunk of games at the moment for the Cows, which is why I held him. So, but we need to move on because you don't have too much time. Simi Sasangi is -2, and he's still a big trade-in, I reckon, at 500k. Herbie to him to get you money, that could end up being an absolute winner for the next month of footy. But team list we've got to quickly touch on, mate. Penrith and Bulldogs are the first game, and not really many changes. Cherry's back in for Crichton, but other than that, VC on Cleary with the run of form that he's currently on with the Bulldogs, not really defending as well as what they have in the past at times. Is this a VC, shut the door, just put it on Cleary week?
100%. I even considered the fact of just a straight C on Cleary, but we'll get to Tom's got a great matchup. Look, it's just if you're playing a strong side this week and you don't want to leave someone out, then that's why I don't mind it. Especially with Setter 2 being named this week, you might not have a centre wing you'll be able to chuck into loop. So that's why I don't hate it, because it's his 200th game. I think he's going to score great. The Doggies' defence was good early, but yeah, I think he'll score well. But just because there are some other great options this week, I'll probably land the VC on him. Have to have something on him as an owner.
Cleary's worst average in Supercoach historically against the Bulldogs, 59 career average. And high score only 106. I did,
but you did say last week about Melbourne Storm last week, and he did the opposite. He's in a flying form. Sometimes you got to chuck the stats out the window and go of what you're watching. And that's why
100%.
He's going to get his high score against the Dogs.
I'll throw up another little stats clanker in there just for the devil's advocate side of things. The stats are always there to be broken. You can always, buck the stats. But each week that you buck that stat, it's harder to keep bucking it. And this would be like 3 weeks in a row where it's his hardest opposition and he's scored amazingly against him. So, it is a little bit harder statistically for him to get a ton this week just based on the numbers. But I'm probably going to have to get him in myself.
No Stephen Crichton, mind you, and I thought when Crichton went off the field, they lost a lot of leadership and they looked lost. So that's another factor that I think they could absolutely put it on it.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried this could be a bit of a dirty game where it's like, 20 to 14 or something, and it's just not.
Or
not
they level up for Cleary's 200 and kill him.
Oh, yeah, maybe. So Eagles Dragons is the next one. So obvious choices here of a Tom Trbojevic VC. I could not see Tom outright. That everyone just saw him go down on the weekend, even though it wasn't like a proper injury, it was a HIA. These things find Tom. So I always think that you got to be safeguarded by the VC with him. As far as his scores against the Dragons, he only played 1 game last year versus them, and that was
I'm willing to put the C on Tom this week. like I said, I'm playing a little. I feel like to catch up, I play my loose style, which seems to either works or it doesn't. But more so Cleary. Like I'd take a 110 loop this week. If he doesn't get 110, I think Tom can put it on the Dragons. Like he's been great. You're right, he's always got that injury factor. But I think if he can stay on the field for 80 minutes, I'd be pretty comfortable he gets 90 plus.
So the Broncos and Cows. The Broncos have named Adam Reynolds to return in the halves alongside Ezra Mam. So that's quite a boost. Jesse Arthurs is a new fullback, which is interesting. And obviously Payne Haas is named again, and they're hopeful of probably more minutes out of him. I think Scott Drinkwater, you 100% can ride it and VC him. He hasn't had a ton yet, but he's got 3 weeks of 92 average, 90 pluses. This could be a week that I reckon he could get there. My boy Murray Talangi keeps on scoring well, mid-80s again last week. But really, Mikey, I think anyone that's got a Helam Lukey, Tom Chester, Purdue, you'd be playing all these guys with a lot of confidence this week versus this busted-up Broncos side.
The Broncos was still sharp for this game, 100%. But yeah, definitely. Like I'll be playing Chester this week. I got it wrong last week. Didn't play him. I thought he might score well. Pardon me, I didn't play him. But yeah, I'd be playing all of them, especially. I'm assuming if you got Purdue, you've got him in 5'8", and you're not really worrying like the rest of us about that position. So I'm jealous of those people for sure.
Rabbits Raiders, I don't think we've got too much relevant there that we haven't already spoken about. The Sharkies Roosters. Look, is this the sort of game where you can ride a hot streak from Nico Hynes and look at the C for him? I think some people will look at it, but I don't think many. So it's a bit of a pod move in this one. And the Roosters have had the week off, though, have named a bit of a stronger team with a couple returning.
Yeah, I think Roosters can upset him here. I keep going for the opposite against the Sharks, keep getting it wrong. It's at Perth, it's at Optus Stadium. Look, if you have him in the flex, I like a VC Cleary C Hynes. I don't hate it. But I can't do that if you can't do it if you've got them both as your halfback. So that's probably why I won't look at that.
The Storm and the Warriors, I'm going to make another big call. I think that with a couple out for the Warriors, including Metcalf now gone for a few weeks, Storm 3 losses in a row now, playing at Amy Park. I think they will towel up the Warriors and put some points on. So I reckon if you believe that, Farlongo's obviously your man. Hughes is a bit of a sneaky VC one if you got him and you got someone a bit later on. And Joe Chan, he's getting another line break this week, Mikey. I can feel it.
Yeah, 100%. Play all your Storm. Even Moses Leo could be a good shout. But I do think the Warriors will respond as well because they were really good at the start. Webb's will be hard on them. And they've gone back to that halves combo that worked for them, like obviously not by choice. But this could be a bit of a grindy affair because I think both teams will be desperate. I'm not saying that they're going to get the win, but not the worst play for your Warriors either because the Storm's been leaky and they're not going to fix it overnight. It's been leaky as hell. So I'd still play edges and stuff like that against them.
Eels Titans, not a lot happening there. Although I will say, if you've got to hold Kinney for this week, the Eels are looking a little bit dicey. Kinney could be a decent play this week. This could be the week that he actually busts out.
Yeah, 100%. Just a quick one that we forgot to touch on. Brendan Smith in that Rabbitohs games has been named to start at hooker. Another option if you want to jump early, just to make a bit of cash. Is kind of what I'm looking at. But yeah, the Titans game, yeah, it's a hard one to kind of predict. The Eels, surely, I think the Eels have been unlucky in a few of their matches. A key one to keep an eye on. There's a lot of options coming up for them. Obviously, Papali will, if he has another good matchup, he'll be a good option to get rid of your 5'8", what's his name, Pezzett. And yeah, Ronald Vulcan's coming to the halves, which there was talks that they were going to debut that youngster, the highly touted youngster, and they haven't. So, thing to keep an eye on.
Tigers Knights finishes the round. Probably the one that we didn't mention is Tavana has now been named for his third game, so he's going to change in price. So it's an easy downgrade option to free up some cash in your centre wing. And, this is second versus third.
Yeah,
so it's a bit of a big clash. Crazy. Do you back Adam Dewey at home? Is this like the ultimate hand grenade C to throw the C on Dewey if it doesn't work out with your VC?
I keep doubting the Knights and it's costing me. So I don't. With the other options this week, I don't like that one. I do think it could be a good matchup for him, but I'm not going to put all my chips in on Adam Dewey if I was an owner. Even Macassini. Macassini's been good and I'm waiting for that breakout game, but the Knights centers have been very strong defensively, or maybe the big shout here is
Macassini.
Of course, he's debuting, but Macassini will be up against Gag.
Yeah, so it's Taruva and Tavana who will be up against Marju and De Courcy, who is Yeah, they'll probably target that side.
So yeah, if I was to sell Herbie this week, I probably won't play a guy like Macassini because I'd only have to play one cheap, and I think I prefer Chester against the depleted Broncos. But look, he's not the worst player. I guess this is kind of what you're looking at here when you're looking at team lists, is which cheapie to play, because it is making a difference if you don't have to play all these guys. Because each week, like the one that just gone, only one of our cheapies scored above 70. The rest were all pretty average.
So that will do it for the podcast, round 6. Mikey, thank you for jumping on board again. Really appreciate it, mate. Good luck for the week.
Cheers, thanks. And I guess maybe to end on, Kai Pearce-Paul, I think he's another one too that I've been tossing up with all quite. I think he's also a great purchase if you can. Ride the teams with form. I think it's important. But big rounding coming. Get the guys that you miss, the guns that you miss, and if not, maybe I think it's the time to make a move.
Boost away and get aggressive.
Yeah, it's a boost week, that's for sure.
Anyone who hasn't yet, make sure you follow and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. We'll be back again next week as well with another wrap-up, possibly with Mikey, maybe another guest. I know Wilfred's coming on in the next 2 weeks to give all those Champions fans someone to cheer for. But until then, enjoy the week of footy. Enjoy the round of SuperCoach. Good luck to everyone. Can't wait to talk all about it again next week.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. Only shooting stars break the